I have a dreamy memory of swinging from a giant pear tree. The swing was a rope swing and it hung from a huge old pear tree that was in full flower. And I was 7 years old at the time. Hi, my name's Robin and I've been filming my little edible garden on YouTube for about the last year. And this week I'm going to look at all things pears, from growing pears in a small space, for maintenance throughout the year, and then harvest. And I'll particularly focus on espalier. This is my 30-year-old espalier pear tree and I have 2 of these. And this is Harry. Espalier is the art of training your tree to a particular shape. And I mentioned the dreamy pear tree story because that tree was at its full height and it was about 20 meters tall. Pear trees grow very large, but luckily they're actually very amenable for shaping and training. And they're a tree that you can prune hard and they respond well to it. So they're great for espalier. Okay, so getting down to the ground level, one of the biggest issues that you'll find with pear trees is the rootstock, which seems to produce a lot of suckers. Grafted pear trees usually use a dwarfing rootstock and it's often quince, and I do find that the rootstock suckers quite extensively. Getting on top of the suckers is probably one of the biggest jobs, and it's important because otherwise you'll end up with other little mini trees everywhere, or big trees. The simplest way of dealing with suckers is just to cut them away, and you will need to cut them right down to the ground because if you leave it a little bit above the ground it'll reshoot from that spot. While dealing with the suckers is pretty much an all year round chore, the pruning is a little different, even for espaliers, which does require a lot more pruning than an ordinary fruit tree. Right now we're moving into the period when the tree is about to burst into flower, and between this period of time and the harvest, I don't tend to do too much to the tree. I'll sometimes do a bit of light summer pruning, but generally I leave the tree to concentrate on fruit production and the strength of the fruit. As soon as I've harvested the fruit in summer, I concentrate on shaping the tree, and it's a lighter prune in summer. To reduce the risk of disease and distress when you're cutting your branches, make sure that all your equipment is clean and that you choose a dry, sunny day so the plant heals better. It's important with espalier to make sure that you leave upward growth at the end of the branches. Don't cut the branches off short, otherwise the tree will likely draw all its energy back to the trunk and you could possibly lose that limb. If you're trying to figure out the difference between a leaf bud and a fruiting bud, the leaf buds tend to run individually along the branch, and the fruiting buds are more like knobbly clusters. And like any other pruning, always cut back to an outward facing node or back to the branch. Remove all the strong upright shoots that seem to grow in summer and winter, and long thin laterals, even if they've got a fruit cluster at the end, are worth pruning off because they won't hold the fruit as well as older branches. Work with the idea that 2-year-old wood and young spurs growing on that 2-year-old wood produce the best fruit. Other basic care is to keep the weeds down around the plant and to make sure there's not mulch building up around the base of the tree, putting it at risk of collar rot. A little bit of fertilizer if you feel like it needs it, and water in dry periods. The best time to fertilise is early spring before the new growth appears, and that gives it a bit of a boost before fruiting. Compost, chook poo, worm juice all make great fertilisers. Pears need another pear for cross-pollination, and usually if you're in a suburban environment there's some other pear in somebody else's backyard, or do as I've done and grow 2 pears. You'll need 2 different varieties and they need to flower around the same time. If you're tempted to grow your pear from seed, be aware that they don't come true to their seed. You might be nurturing a future 20-metre Frankenstein that doesn't produce very good fruit. Well, I highly recommend growing a pear tree. Even if you have a small garden, they grow well in a largish style container. They're not very frost sensitive, they're great for a cool climate, and they're a very versatile plant that are beautiful all year round. The blossoms, the autumn leaves, the bare bones of the winters, and the gorgeous green wall that you get in summer. Harvest your fruit in autumn, and definitely if you're noticing the birds pecking at them, they're ready. It's best to harvest your fruit early and when you notice the skin starting to change colour, because they can become quite overripe on the tree. And if they're dropping to the ground, they're definitely getting bruised and have probably gone too far. Pears are wonderfully versatile, and if you're lucky enough to have a glut, they work wonders in a salad if you grill the pear to bring out the sugars and add walnuts or radicchio, some sort of bitter flavours, and blue cheese. Also try a pear and goat's cheese tart. Well, that's the first time I've used that recipe, and in fact it was a conglomeration of about 3 recipes I found on the web. It's very low carb, and I didn't use sugar, and the goat's cheese is a nice salty foil to the sweetness of the pear. This episode features guest artist Joyce, and we're together expressing the love of pears through art. Joyce is turning 92 in a couple of weeks, and we're looking forward to celebrating her birthday. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll take it away with the art. Bye.
Today it's actually corn pear-shaped.
It's my mum's 92nd birthday in a couple of weeks, and we're still very much enjoying our artworks together. I think the cat wants to go. Well, come on, Numi, just hang in there with me. No, Numi. No, Numi.